Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a really fascinating and very personal set of sources today. It's excerpts from a novel, Letter to My Daughter, by George Bishop.
Yeah, this isn't your typical, research paper or news clippings. It's incredibly intimate. It's a mother, Laura, writing to her daughter, Liz, who's missing.
Right, and she's sharing this really pivotal story from her own past.
So for this deep dive, our mission really is to walk through this letter with you. We're going to pull out the most compelling parts of Laura's story, her reflections, try to figure out, what she's trying to tell Liz.
And why this story? Why now? Especially while she's dealing with this awful present-day situation, her daughter being gone.
Exactly. We're looking for those surprising details, the emotional beats, maybe those aha moments that make her experience feel relevant, not just to Liz, but maybe to us too.
So the letter just drops you right in. She starts, I'm on my third cup of coffee now, and there's still no sign of you. Wow.
Yeah, that line just hits you, doesn't it? It sets the mood immediately. That worry, that uncertainty, it's palpable.
She says she's trying not to imagine the worst, hoping Liz gets back for her birthday.
Mm-hmm. And then you have this contrast with the father, Liz's dad. He's outside, mowing the grass like nothing ever happened.
She notes he's anxious too, but his reaction is just different, maybe denial or just helplessness. He suggests Liz is just at the mall.
Right. And it seems like this immediate fear, this worry about Liz, is what actually sends Laura back in time. She even says it, now you see why I get so worried. Pardon the interruption. I've set my mind to tell you this story, so I'll get back to it now.
So the present fear is the catalyst.
Yeah.
It takes her back to Zachary, Louisiana, 1969. She was a freshman then.
Liz's age, right now.
Exactly. And she describes feeling so isolated out there on the farm, like living on Mars. Hated it.
Yeah, a mile and a half from any other house. She thought everyone else had these glamorous, exciting lives, that classic teenage feeling.
Totally. And she makes it clear, this letter, this story, it's meant to teach Liz something important. She says she's trying to put this, like, I remember it, and this next part of the story is important.
She even has this little aside, almost joking but serious underneath. Learning from my mistakes. About how the whole moral purpose of this story is to help you lead a better life than I did. Well, keep that in mind.
It really frames it, doesn't it? This isn't just reminiscing, it's urgent, trying to pass on hard-won lessons.
Hoping Liz can navigate things differently. So she starts at the beginning, like her old teacher, Sister Mary Margaret, apparently always said.
Begin at the beginning, and for Laura, that's 1969.
And she really emphasizes Zachary back then. It really was the sticks, reinforces that isolation she felt.
Which makes her first real connection outside that world feel massive. Meeting Tim at the freshman-senior get-acquainted dance.
Yeah, she's a freshman, he's a senior. They sort of knew each other from the bus.
Right, but he wasn't like the popular guy. Thin, kind of nerdy, Eagle Scouts, ham radio, that sort of thing.
But that night at the dance, he looked different. Great hair, she says, blue blazer, white turtleneck. He asks her to dance.
To Sugar, Sugar, which she calls a dumb song.
And apparently hard to dance to.
Yeah, but she was surprised he even knew her name. You get the scene. Crepe paper, colored lights, spiked punch.
The usual high school dance stuff.
But meeting him, even with the awkwardness, felt thrilling and romantic to her.
And then she gives us this really crucial background on Tim, explains his place in the town, how people saw him. His dad, Jack Prejean, had a radio and TV repair shop.
But it was kind of failing, right? Dusty. She says, hardly anyone visited anymore. Anyone in this case meaning white folks like us.
Right. Most of his customers were black. The shop was on a mixed street. And on top of that, they lived in a camping trailer out in the woods.
So, in the eyes of people like her dad, they basically lived up to the stereotypes.
But Laura tells Liz this wasn't always how it was. They used to have a house. The shop did better before the mall opened. The real problem started with Tim's mom getting sick. The disease, she calls it.
And there were rumors, nasty gossip about syphilis.
Yeah, gruesome telephone gossip. But the truth, which came out later, was ovarian cancer. And Jack Prejean didn't have insurance. The hospital bills just wiped them out.
So when his wife Susie died, Jack sold the house to pay for this.
Yeah.
Really over-the-top funeral.
Velvet-lined brass casket, choir, limos, the works. She says funerals were especially popular in those days. Kind of a strange detail, but it paints a picture.
But here's the really telling part about the town's attitude.
Yeah.
Even after they knew it was cancer, her parents still felt the Prejean got what they deserved.
Wow. Her mother's comment is brutal. All the flowers in the world can't buy salvation.
So this vague cloud of disgrace hung over Tim and his dad.
Yeah.
It shows how poverty, illness, they weren't met with sympathy by everyone, but with judgment.
Yeah, harsh judgment. So when Tim actually invited Laura to the trailer, she saw it as a huge deal, like him showing her a secret part of himself, a wound almost.
A sign of trust. She felt privileged.
And her description of their place, it's bleak. Dirt roads, dirt yards, dirt gardens, frustration and anger and sadness turned inward to become poverty. That really connects the place to the feeling.
And Jack Prejean, Tim's dad, he comes across as trying so hard,
Yeah.
desperately hospitable.
Thin, neat uniform, serving RC Cola and nuts, apologizing for what they don't have. You feel for him and trying to keep up appearances.
The trailer itself is tiny, unbearably intimate, she says. Barely anything inside. Old Spice, Brill Cream, electronics magazines, soup cans.
But the one decoration, that's the kicker. A framed photo of Susie, Tim's mom, laughing on a swing. Younger Tim's there, and Jack's shadow is in it too, completing the family triad.
Knowing Susie died makes that photo just heartbreaking.
Absolutely. So understanding Tim's world sets the stage for their connection. Then she shifts to their first real intimate moment, back at her house. Her parents were out.
Right, her parents didn't approve of Tim, so he avoided them usually. She describes the scene. Fire going, cold outside, warm inside. Just them.
And she's pretty direct with Liz about it. Says they did just what any 15-year-old girl and 17-year-old boy would do in that situation. Turned off the light, hugged him close.
Tim was gently stroking my hair as he studied my face. She felt a bit awkward, she says, and asked him the question. Why her? Why did he ask her to dance that night?
And his answer, it's really something, tells you so much about him. He says after his mom died, people acted like he was contagious, afraid of him.
But Laura, he says, she looked at him differently. Pitifully, like she actually understood his pain.
Yeah, and he remembered this one specific morning on the bus. She gave him this little crooked kind of half smile, and it just made him feel a whole lot better.
Then he pauses and just says, I never in my life thought I could get so lucky.
Wow. So Tim, this kid who felt like an outcast, he saw her empathy. He saw her, not just her family or social standing.
It wasn't about looks or popularity, was it? It was about being truly seen.
Exactly. And that vulnerability, that simple statement of feeling lucky to know her, it just unlocked something in Laura. She says before that night, things were limited physically, her Baptist background, his politeness.
But that night, she says, everything was just so perfect.
Yeah.
No right or wrong. She describes letting go of shame, feeling amazed by each other, transformed by trust and love.
Feeling as young and beautiful and flawless as God had intended. She even calls it their marriage on the rug, finding this sympathy for one another that bordered on the divine.
What was mine became his, and what was his was mine. She mentions crying a bit, Tim comforting her.
It sounds incredibly profound for teenagers.
Totally. And then, bam, the perfect moment shatters. We didn't see the headlights sweeping the walls or hear the footsteps before my parents stepped into the room and found us.
Oh, God, caught. Her mother was just uncomfortable, probably thinking about the Parisian's background, social status.
But the father, his reaction was instant prejudice. Started talking about Tim's dad's customers, how the coloreds had done to ruin the downtown, how he couldn't deal with those people.
It was obviously a test for Tim, wasn't it? Like her dad saw Tim as barely white, and the only way to pass was to join the bigotry.
But Tim doesn't. Laura makes a point of telling Liz this. He makes the honorable choice.
It's for him.
He defends his dad's customers, says they kept the shop afloat, says electronics are the same whoever buys them, and says their black neighbors were decent people, probably the best neighbors they'd ever had.
Which naturally infuriates her father. He escalates, right? Starts ranting about school integration having no benefit.
And then pulls out his favorite argument.
Yeah.
This totally racist claim about a secret scientific study at LSU proving black people were intellectually inferior.
Oh my God. Skull measurements, brains and formaldehyde. It's just horrifying.
Utter ignorance and hatred. And Tim finally snaps. He stands up to leave, calls her dad just plain ignorant.
And the father gets furious, like physically.
Yeah, hands coming up in fists, ready to fight. Laura tries to defend Tim. Her mom's just sputtering uselessly.
What a scene. So later, in Tim's dad's truck, Laura feels awful, so ashamed. Asks Tim why her parents are so mean and awful.
And Tim says something really important, something that sticks. You're not them, Laura. You're not them.
That's powerful. Seeing her as separate from her family's hate, that's a key theme for you listening, right? defining yourself apart from your upbringing and having someone else see you.
Absolutely. So the fallout is immediate. Laura gets shipped off to Sacred Heart Academy, SHA,
Yeah.
Baton Rouge.
The official reasons are all about a good moral education, the school's reputation.
But the real reasons, she tells Liz point blank, were hating integration and catching her with Tim. Simple as that.
And the admission interview sounds like pure performance art from the parents. Her dad's all gentlemanly and sincere, praising the school, pretending respect for Catholics, all while Christians under the skin.
Her mom even chimes in, wishing she could have gone to Catholic school.
Yeah.
Just absurd.
Laura spells out the unspoken truth. We're here because we hate the coloreds, and we caught our daughter having sex on the living room floor with a trailer boy. Start honesty there.
But the nun, Sister Evelyn, throws a wrench in their plans by asking Laura directly, "And why do you want to come to Sacred Heart, Laura?"
Oops. Parents probably panicked.
Laura's answer is pretty blunt. "I want a better life for myself." But she admits later her real motivation was just hating her parents' bigotry and feeling trapped. For the hopeless, one prison is as good as the next.
Wow. And she thinks Sister Evelyn probably saw it right through them, that SHA took problem girls, maybe saw it as a religious victory, saving a Baptist farm girl.
Yeah, maybe. So life at SHA is super strict. Convent-like, she calls it. Bells, rules, study hours.
But surprisingly, that structure actually helps. She says it was amazingly effective in stifling any wayward emotions. Didn't have time to be miserable.
Sometimes that happens, doesn't it? Structure as a coping mechanism. And she finds her people there, among the other misfits.
Right, the charity cases. So Chi Chung, Christy Lee, Ann Harding in the neck brace, they bond over being outsiders.
That shared experience gave us misfortunates the support we needed. And she meets Sister Mary Margaret, the rhetoric teacher.
The one who smelled musty and rustled.
That's her. The one who taught begin at the beginning and about oxymorons.
Using free love as an example, which is, two contradictory words together, like deafening silence or...
Free love. Got it. So Sister Mary Margaret, despite seeming all about grammar, turns out to be an ally. She encourages Laura to join the school paper, The Beacon.
And this is a turning point, right? She starts finding her voice, writes her first piece about Maddie Sims, the school cook.
Yeah, a cheerful black woman, worked there 33 years, and the article gets this totally unexpected reaction.
Praised as supremely principled and humane, brave for exposing hypocrisies and racial injustices, things Laura just saw as, facts.
But it gives her power. She becomes special features editor, can write about anything, spends her free time in the newspaper office, learning the ropes.
Gains this amazing freedom, just waves a paper, says, "Got a deadline, sister," and breezes past the nuns.
Even the principal approves, thinking she's finally mixing with the other girls. The irony. She's mixing all right, but through her writing, finding influence.
And that world opens up even more. She gets to go to this unchaperoned press conference at LSU. Huge deal, leaving SHA.
She rides with this girl, Kim Courtney, in a cool car. They're smoking, singing. Feels like freedom.
Kim gives her some worldly advice about boys, too, right? About lips being more important than writing skills.
Oh, yeah. Bit of a reality check, maybe.
Huh.
But the conference itself is inspiring. Workshops, quotes from famous thinkers, talk about the sacred power of the word, freedom of the press.
She starts believing words could change the world, sees potential everywhere.
And that's where she properly meets Chip Benton, the photographer from the boys' school. Fair, goofy smile, curly hair.
Bolder than Tim, she notes, especially with his camera. And he's into her. Crazy about you, he says initially.
Okay, so Laura's world is definitely expanding. Writing, conferences, meeting guys like Chip. But she's still connected to Tim through letters, right? He's enlisted and gone to Vietnam.
Yeah, she shares what she knows from his letters. At first they sound almost naive, like a Boy Scout adventure.
Radio research, sea rations, sleeping outside, seeing farms. The war feels distant. Choppers, convoys, but far off.
Even Jack Prejean, Tim's dad, thinks the army suits him. Laura and Jack are writing back and forth on repair forms. He teases her about boyfriends. She says she misses Tim.
She feels closer to the Prejeans than her own family, sees their life as honest and simple.
But then that summer, a different kind of surprise. Chip Benton calls her. Kim Courtney gave him her number. He asks her out.
And she admits her heart beat faster, a different possibility opening up.
Right around then, Tim writes again. He's re-enlisted for another tour.
Why? What were his reasons?
Well, officially, extra combat pay for savings. Plus, he was already there, got promoted to corporal, people saluting him, felt useful, fighting communists, believed the mission was important.
The recruiter filled his head with stuff too, right?
Yeah.
Officer potential, college.
Yeah, and that ridiculous line about guys just drinking beer on the beach. Total crapola, as Laura calls it. She tells him he fell for it, calls him stupid.
Ouch. How did he react?
He was hurt, said, "I did it for you, don't you understand? It's for you, it's for you."
Oh, man. And Laura, looking back, completely rejects that move.
Absolutely. She wishes he'd done it for patriotism or bravery, even dumb ideas of heroism, but not for her. Don't you dare do that in my name and call it love.
That's a really crucial insight she's passing on about what love isn't. Connects right back to her fears for Liz, maybe.
Definitely feels like it. And then Tim's letters start to shift. Slowly, she says, bits and pieces of something awful start coming through, a deep and lasting scar.
What kind of things?
He keeps describing the sequence, calling in coordinates for airstrikes, the silence after, then hiking into the village, the smoke, the strange keening noise, the smell.
The smell. Oh, God.
He realized, she writes, this was the direct result of his radio work. Those numbers were flesh and blood people. He couldn't believe he'd been spared seeing it for so long.
How did it affect him?
He tried to forget, like most boys over here do. Wrote about friends dying randomly, soldier superstitions.
Like not saying how many days you had left? Predicting newbie deaths.
Exactly. He started thinking death was random, didn't care if you were good or bad. He couldn't see the difference between victims and perpetrators anymore. Describes seeing a girl holding a baby, both horrifically burned. Asked Laura, how do you make sense of that?
Unimaginable. But he still held on to hope for them.
Desperately. He'd picture her meeting him and Zachary, wearing shorts, wanting a quiet life, saving for a house, making love. That was his anchor.
It's strange, though, he also mentioned moments of peace.
Yeah, that's really poignant. Little things like seeing baby ducks, a Vietnamese woman laughing, becoming friends with this guy Bin, teaching him radio. Small human connections that somehow cut through the war.
What the war changed him fundamentally, made him skeptical.
A doubter, she calls him. If they could lie about the war, what else was a lie? He concluded nothing was worth dying for. Maybe love.
And the medals he got. He told her they weren't really about the war.
No, they were about her. Wanting to please her, keeping her picture in mind. They were meant to give her strength if she ever felt worthless.
Wow. So while Kim's going through this hell and clinging to this vision of their future, Laura's world is just moving on.
Completely. SAJ changed her. Zachary, Tim's plans, they seemed smaller, stifling even, compared to what her classmates were doing, college, jobs, dating.
She asks herself, what was his hurry? It's a tough spot. His dark letters coming alongside this simple, maybe outdated dream of settling down.
The gap between them is widening, you can feel it. Which brings us to the prom, with Chip Benton.
Her friends push her to go, right? Just the dance, he's cute, she was lucky he asked.
Yeah, and her friends help her get ready, borrows dress, shoes, advice galore, don't get drunk, don't eat too much, make him grovel, bring a toothbrush. Typical girl stuff.
Chip plays the part well. Corsage opens doors, jokes with the nun. She feels like royalty for a second.
But the drive, dinner, it highlights their differences. Chip's obsessed with his dad's Cadillac.
Laura tries asking questions like her friends told her, but Chip gets annoyed. Who gives a damn about the car anyway? Which, funnily enough, eases the tension.
At dinner, though, the future contrast is stark. Chip's talking Tulane, frat houses. Sounds like studying in Paris to Laura.
While she's thinking about Zachary, where options are basically marriage or not much else for girls then, the world seems open to her from that revolving restaurant.
And maybe that feeling, that contrast, is why she tells Chip about Tim. His re-enlistment, coming home soon, their marriage plans, the house and Zachary.
Chip's surprised, and Laura instantly feels guilty, like Tim is suddenly there in his muddy combat boots, looking hurt and betrayed. She knows she shouldn't have said it.
And she says basically the betrayal started right there. Going with Chip, telling him about Tim, except the stage for later.
So after the prom, at a party, things get ugly. Chip tells people Laura's taken by a major in the army, coming home to marry her and live in a rundown house.
And Laura, she joins in the mocking. Drunk, caught up, making cruel jokes about poor Cajuns like Tim, using stereotypes, exaggerated accents.
Oh no, snap beans, petunias and tires, shooting raccoons. It's awful. Echoes the prejudice she hated in her parents.
Exactly. She describes them laughing, feeling brilliant in our gowns and tuxedos. It's a really uncomfortable moment of complicity. Lasts until a slow song starts.
The drive after. Dreamy, she says, from lack of sleep, alcohol, caffeine. They stop overlooking the LSU lake. Chip points out his nice house,
And Laura imagines just walking across the water to his house to an easy future, life being that simple.
which linked to what she calls the third time I betrayed Tim that evening, being intimate with Chip.
She rationalizes it, right. He was kind, polite, it was his last prom, she wanted to make it special for him. Says she meant it sincerely, even in the act of betrayal.
Chip's reaction is interesting too. Oh my God, during, but then peculiar and unresponsive after? Suggests it wasn't simple for him either.
Maybe, but the immediate result for Laura is misery all summer because Chip basically ghosts her. Leaves for college, no calls.
But that's nothing compared to the real news. Tim died in Vietnam, just 3 weeks before he was due home.
Devastating. Absolutely
The
devastating.
funeral's the opposite of his mother's. Stark, brief, few people, no flowers. Jack wouldn't allow a sermon.
Laura sits with Jack, just exchanging facts, and she has this terrible insight. This lonely funeral is the exact opposite of Tim's dream homecoming.
She feels like God has vanished, just pieces of charred bone and flesh left. The cemetery is bleak. Jack looks lost, a crow cawing.
Her last visit to Jack, so sad she makes biscuits. He gives her Tim's medals, and his final letter reminds her of that photo of Susie and Tim. Tells her to go. Don't keep the nuns waiting.
And as on the bus back to SHA, reading that letter, holding those medals,
Yeah.
she just breaks.
Completely breaks. Sees her life as miserable, ugly. Suicide feels like the only way out. Relief. She's ready to jump in front of a bus. Counts the steps. 3 quick steps.
But then she sees the tattoo parlor sign across the street.
And it's not a choice, she says. She had to do it. A divine intervention that literally saved her. Walks straight across the street.
Into this dingy and small place. Meets Greg, the tattoo artist. Big, scruffy army shirt. She lies, says she's 18.
She shows her designs. She knows where it has to go below my hip, marking that night in the parlor with Tim. A hidden place, especially for a girl back then.
She lies down. Greg gets ready. The machine buzzes like a dentist drill.
Yeah.
He talks while he works about tattoo history, royalty, spirituality, charms, but also outcasts.
Yeah, and he lists criminals, slaves, and then adds, got your Jews, of course. Puts it in that historical context of marking marginalized people. It's jarring.
And while he's working, she has this experience, like she leaves her body.
An out-of-body experience. Floating near the ceiling, looking down at herself on the table. Feeling pity, but also protection. Making a promise to that girl. You'll be fine, I promise. I'll take care of you.
Wow. Then she comes back when Greg finishes. He tells her she's strong, it's a sensitive area, calls her a real strong lady.
The tattoo itself, we learn later, makes her hip feel throbbing. It reminds her of a line from an Elizabeth Barrett Browning sonnet found with Tim's letter, I shall but love thee better. It becomes this permanent link to Tim's love, his memory.
But back at SHA, total scandal. Tattoos on girls like her then meant thuggery and vice.
Yeah.
Outrageous.
She's immediately busted, dragged to the nurse, the principal, parents called. Sister Evelyn can barely describe it on the phone. Something horrible.
The nurse is angry about the damage to your skin, asks if she was drunk, gives her a tetanus shot.
Her parents are just shocked, ashamed, stand back like they don't know her. Other girls stare, whisper, call her Jezebel, scratch it on her locker.
Like Hester Prynne, she says. Totally ostracized. She withdraws.
But Sister Mary Margaret steps up. Her old teacher asks if the quote is Browning, if it's about Tim.
Laura confirms. Says it was for him. Something she had to do to remember his love, to save herself. Sister Mary Margaret gets it, but warns they won't understand.
And she argues against expelling Laura. No rule against tattoos. Sister Agatha fires back. No rule against murderers either. Ouch.
But then something amazing happens. Solidarity. The other charity cases, her misfit friends, they start getting tattoos too.
Despite the risk. So Chi Chong gets her Chinese name on her breast. And Harding gets It Made Me Stronger on her neck after her brace comes off. Christy Lee gets a broken chain, each one personal, defiant.
And this sparks a protest.
A sit-in. The girls refuse to leave the front lawn. Bring chairs, study, write letters. Parents argue, but the girls stay put.
More girls join in, even popular ones.
Yeah, Tracy Broussard gets a broken heart tattoo, cries with them. The whole thing puts huge pressure on the school.
The nuns are rattled. The staff can't expel everyone, so they back down on Laura's probation. She can graduate.
But they immediately change the rules, right? Ban tattoos, visible or not. Damage control.
And Greg, the tattoo artist, he becomes a scapegoat. Arrested on fake charges, corruption of minors, gets 9 months. Easy target.
Though Laura mentions running into him years later, he became a counselor for troubled kids, so he found his own path too.
Okay, so bringing all this back to the present. Liz is still missing. Laura looks at her faded tattoo, still feels it throbbing. Still a reminder, I shall but love thee better.
She mentions running into Greg again, that quiet connection. But her mind is totally on Liz. Still worried. Her husband's mowing the lawn again late at night. She's looking for clues, even a Coke can.
She remembers Liz as a kid in that neighborhood, riding her bike, a dog chasing her, falling on ice. This place is Liz's world, just like Zachary is hers.
And she directly connects her past pain to Liz's age now. How hard it is to be your age, admits her own mistakes, implicitly telling Liz, learn from my mistakes. Especially about choices made out of desperation.
She tries to explain her own parenting style. Setting boundaries isn't the same as her parents' meanness. Parents have a job to set limits, unlike those shitty parents Liz might complain about.
And then this really fundamental statement about being female, you hurt. It's the fate of all girls, and that's what makes them women. It's kind of resigned, but also unifying.
But she follows it with pure maternal reassurance. Things will be better. You'll be fine, I promise. What else can she say?
Exactly. The waiting is agony, news stories flashing through her head. Just desperate hope Liz comes home. She plans to leave the letter on Liz's bed.
And she loops back to Tim's final realization from the war. Nothing's worth dying for except maybe love. His medals weren't about war. They were symbols of his love for her, meant to give her strength. That becomes the core meaning she takes from it all.
And she remembers Sister Mary Margaret's oxymoron, free love. Her
Yeah.
conclusion, love always has a cost. Not dying for someone, maybe, but vulnerability, forgiveness, enduring pain.
The story ends there. Letter finished, birthday cake made, waiting.
Wow. Quite a journey. We've gone through decades, really, compressed into this letter, written out affair. From that restricted life in Zachary, first love, prejudice, war, loss, betrayal.
Just finding her voice, making mistakes, facing consequences, and then that incredible act with the tattoo, sparking solidarity.
It's more than just a coming-of-age story, isn't it? It's a really raw look at everything that shapes us: society, war, family, the search for who you are, for connection, even when you're dealing with immense pain and regret.
Right. And for you listening, Laura's story, told this way to her missing daughter, it holds up a mirror to those complexities. The mistakes we make, how experiences shape us, the power of love, the struggle to define yourself.
Even when the world or your past tries to pin you down, her story literally marks her.
Which does leave us with something to think about, doesn't it? Building on her story. How do our scars, the ones people see and the ones they don't, tell our story? Are they just marks of shame, things we regret?
Or are they also reminders? Reminders of resilience, of what we learned, the love that shaped us, of just getting through the messy business of becoming who we are.
And how do we pass on the lessons from those scars, that quiet strength maybe, to the people we love? Something to ponder.